everyone. It's a very explosive.
Hola.
It's
Explosive.
It's explosive. It's like
I love my. Well, no, you know what plosives are.
What are plosives? Tell us, Spencer.
Oh, I mean, it's like a I guess theater / like radio term, and it's just the big like P's, and I might actually be getting it wrong. I don't know what sounds plosives are. I think it's just the big like kind of consonant sounds.
You know who you should ask about that?
Who should I ask?
The shocker.
Oh, why do they call him the shocker?
Because I can't say it actually.
That's shocking.
Yeah, it's illegal actually.
Yeah.
Well, guys, welcome to Style and Direction, a menswear podcast without the stuffiness. This is
no plosives either.
No, none of them. No P's. No
Q's.
No. Well, not
P's and Q's. You know.
We'll tell that to Ron Watkins.
Oh, I will absolutely.
I mean, never is Q.
Hey, Ron.
Never is Q.
There's no Q's. Yeah, I just told Ron Watkins, and he gave me a thumbs up.
He gave you a Q up, is what he did.
It's like he broke his fingers, made him into a circle, and then one of his other fingers was just snapped in the little line that comes off the Q, and it's actually he's bleeding a lot through his fingerless gloves.
Wait, so he's here. He's with us.
He's in the room with me, and Ron, why don't you go punch your post?
Yeah, it's...
Remember his post with the leather on it that he just punches?
Yeah, does he say, like, you have to practice the same punch 1,000 times or something like that?
Yeah, and he's like, yeah, I punch it until my hand bleeds. And I'm like, I don't know if this is a workout. This is just like making your knuckles calloused, which maybe that's what you want. By the time this episode comes out, this documentary is going to be like 10 years old.
I know. I'm not going to say when we're recording this, but I watched the Q documentary, like, it feels like a month ago now. Like, it feels so long. And you're not...
Yeah, I mean, we both, like, it has been a while, even now, since it came out. It's still good. Like, I still really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And I have fun talking about it. But, yeah, it's like... Good thing we didn't do this with, like, Tiger King in, like, April of last year or whatever. Unless we did. Maybe we spent the whole first episode...
Of course, the quarantine episode.
Yeah, the quarantine being like, I'm Joe Exotic.
It's not Randy Peculiar. What was it again?
Oh, it's not?
No, wait. Or was that what it was? I know we got it wrong.
It's not. No, I don't think it's Randy. I don't remember what it is. Comedy Bang Bang reference, by the way. You know what's funny? Is we were planning on making a bunch of Tiger King references in our, like, follow-up lockdown episode, which came out, I think, last month, right?
Yeah,
or this April 2021, I should say.
Yeah. No, I think it's March. The March bonus.
2021.
Yeah, March bonus.
Yeah, but we were like, oh, we're just gonna make a bunch of Tiger King jokes, and then we forgot to.
Yeah, we kind
So that's what you're getting now.
We got just in classic quarantine time, we're getting it late. We're late to the whole party, you know.
Yeah, we're freaking slowpoke over here.
Slowpoke. Did you know that there's a Pokemon, I think, called Slowpoke, and then he transforms...
I know that.
Oh, you do know that? Okay. Well, he transforms into Slowking.
Oh, Slowking.
Yes. Slowking as usual.
Yeah, Slowking as usual, I see.
I wonder, do menswear guys... I mean, again, we're going to get to the topic now, but it's... do menswear guys know about YouTube poop?
YouTube poop?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think if next time we do an interview, like, regardless of who it is, we should be like, so, favorite YouTube poop?
And then they say, I'm firing my laser.
Yeah.
That's not
I would
really
love it. Yeah.
poop,
What if we
you
were
know.
like, we were talking to, like, I don't know, like we were talking to some big name, like Ethan Newton, Mark Cho, Jamie Ferguson, whatever. That's the talk show guy. We could talk to Jamie Ferguson. I'd like to know what his favorite YouTube poop is.
Yeah, which
Oh no, that's Craig Ferguson.
Yeah, I was about to say
I'm sorry. I'm all I was going to say I'm all Pfizered out. I got my second dose today, and a little bit lightheaded, but that's it so far.
I didn't feel anything
as I told
when
Ethan.
I first got it, so, you know.
Yeah.
I'm a strong man. I'm like that guy that Ed Hardy Ed Hardy
Ed Hardy? See, you're Pfizered out too. The shedding is true.
What if Ed Hardy was Bane? You know, like that's That's what
I would love that. Like, he was just wearing his shirt. I don't know what Ed Hardy sounds like is the issue.
Do you feel in charge? That's what I think he sounds like.
Okay.
He sounds like a cool guy with like.
I think he
skulls.
is an older guy.
How?
I think Ed Hardy himself is an older guy because I'm pretty sure he was an apprentice of Sailor Jerry, who was active in like the 40s and 50s. But who knows?
I don't know much about Ed Hardy lore. I'm not a Ed head.
You've seen the Ed Hardy boys though, right?
Is this a joke or is that a real thing?
No, this is Nick Kroll, like, you know, his like ghost bouncer character. It came from this like series of sketches he did called the Ed Hardy Boys, where it was like, you know, Nick Kroll and whoever else was in that sketch, and they were just like douchebags, but they would solve mysteries.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And it's pretty good. I'd recommend it.
Okay, I gotta check it out. I still haven't seen like Los Spookies yet either, so like that's like another like funny.
Yeah, neither have I.
We gotta watch this stuff. We gotta watch it. Anyway,
Yeah.
The cold open ended. They're done. You know, first 5 minutes.
6 minutes.
6, more like 7 actually. Probably now.
8.
How far can this keep going?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, numbers. But yeah, I don't think I introduced myself. I'm Ethan M. Wong.
I'm Spencer Oddie.
That's right. You get the last name. And this is Menswear Podcast. If you didn't already know,
This is Menswear Podcast. We should have just
this now.
Why didn't we call this podcast just Menswear Podcast? I think that probably. I mean, no one else has a podcast called Menswear Podcast.
Not even drop.
We would be the top of the.
Yeah, drop the.
Yeah, just Menswear Podcast. And, like, I mean, come on. We'd be the top of the Google results. If you Google Menswear Podcast, that's us. That's our name.
I mean, is it, though? Like, you know, you talk about, like brand dilution. Like, you look up Xerox, but do you get, like, a bunch of regular, like, copy machines if you look up Xerox on Google? Like, I don't know.
That's true. You still get the brand name Xerox mostly, I think.
Yes. Well, so then it's a good thing, because if it was Menswear Podcast, then we would always show up. Like that's that's what
so big update. We're changing the name.
Yeah, sorry, Sad Head Saturday. Now it's gonna be Menswear Podcast Saturday.
We could do Menswear Podcast Monday, but I don't. Who wants to do that on Monday?
You know what? I just feel like, you know how people are like, oh yeah, TBT. MPM doesn't sound cool. Like Menswear Podcast Monday is not.
Doesn't sound very good. SHS, which is Sad Head Saturday, doesn't sound great, but I don't think anyone has ever said SHS out loud to refer to Sad Head Saturday.
Should we start like hashtag SHS?
No, I'm gonna say no.
Hey guys,
no, thank you.
Leave a comment or DM us and tell us what you think SHS could stand for. Like if
send help, sucker.
Why would you?
When you're like,
why would you be mad at the guy?
You're like trying to like you're negging them. You're like, oh yeah, I bet you won't even send help, idiot. And they're like, fuck you, I will send help.
Hey, if only every castaway and like abandoned person on like a shipwreck would say that. Like SOS.
Yeah, you just gotta be SOS, bitch. Yeah. You just gotta be, you gotta be aggressive about it. You gotta be kind of confrontational. That's how you get people to rescue you.
That's what I want. It's like, you want to, you want to help me out, you fucking whore. You know. So
we should like pick up artists, but for getting rescued off of islands.
Yeah. Tip number 1: wear a bold shirt.
Wear a big hat made of all the leaves that you can find on the island.
Yeah, you want to peacock so the hot like helicopter pilot like find and looks at you, and you make them come to you. Like you gotta like you need help. I mean, I guess
they say, "Do you want to be rescued?" You're like, sure, okay, if you wanna. I'm gonna be, I was just gonna hang out here anyway. And they're like, ooh.
Yeah, and then
mysterious.
And then once you get in there, you talk to everyone on the helicopter except the pilot. Like that's you gotta make them want to talk to you.
And then you fuck the pilot.
Yeah, that's the goal at the end, right? Yeah, Mile High Club.
The goal, so it's like it's still just being a pickup artist, but you like the step 1, get stranded on an island. It's like a mashup of The Game and Lost. Hey, you just lost the game.
This is the clip. This whole thing is the clip we're putting on social
Oh
media.
my god. Yeah. Okay, 10-minute cold open. Here we go.
Does this mean that my next suit I'm gonna have monogrammed like SOS? I think that's actually pretty good. I think SOS.
That's pretty funny. I mean, hey, I'm getting a custom suit soon, and I don't know what I'm gonna put inside of it. So yeah, maybe some from this bit.
Oh my god, we have such a big topic today. This is like something that we've like alluded to a lot. As we go through.
Well, like I said, this is all Bill Gates, Pfizer, they're trying to ruin the podcast, and so they gave me the stupid juice this morning.
SJ. What about SJS?
Yeah.
Sad Juice Saturday.
There you go. Sad Juice Saturday.
Or Stupid Head Saturday.
Stupid Head Saturday. I like that one a lot.
That's every day. You know what I'm saying? I'm stupid. I'm just
every day is Saturday,
stupid,
man.
Bitch. Like I'm dumb as hell.
I got a dumb brain.
I'm sad and I'm dumb as hell. So
oh man.
Today we're talking about authenticity. You can see it in the episode title. It's also in the show notes or Ethan essay.
Believe it or not.
Yeah, Ripley. Yeah. But this is, we've kind of, if you're in our Patreon Discord, we've talked about this a couple of times. We talk about slouch, POV, and we've said, I think we've said it even, in all the copy where we're like, oh yeah, make sure it's authentic, make sure it feels natural, and that begs the question of what is natural.
Yeah, what is natural? Naked.
You gotta ask Darwin. Natural selection.
Through the Ace Ventura, man.
I've never seen that movie either, actually.
I haven't seen it in a long time. I'd like to say that I don't know if it holds up. I like Jim Carrey in general. I think now on social media he can be pretty obnoxious, but he made some good movies,
Sonic.
So that's what I was talking about.
Yeah, it starts and ends with Sonic. But yeah, this is something. I mean, we've these discussions are happening all the time. I know Henrik and I think Young Chomsky. We've talked about this where the idea of dressing for who you are, who you want to be, is a relatively new concept. And again, Spencer and I are pretty young. So we've had this very
babies.
Yeah, babies. We've had this very, it doesn't, like, our context doesn't matter. We can wear whatever we want. Like that's something that's
we're
integral for
very,
us.
I guess, very individual about the way that we dress.
Yeah, exactly. And I know that, when I talk to people who, maybe come from maybe not other countries, but maybe different generations, they can be kind of taken aback at this kind of approach, right? And it is tough. So hopefully we can maybe figure out what exactly it means to be authentic and in this episode. And hey, just like other ones, we might not even get there. Maybe this whole episode means nothing.
We're just gonna have a big discussion, and then at the end we're gonna be like, well, we're at square one, but that's okay. That's what our podcast's for.
Yeah, exactly. All podcasts are just listening to two people talk about nothing. Like that's all.
Sometimes more than two people, sometimes less.
Ripley, believe it or not.
Yeah.
So let's think about it. Spencer, what makes clothing authentic? I know it's a big question, but what do you think it means?
I mean, I feel like, this like just kind of gets into the concept of personal style. I feel like it's just one of those things where you kind of know it when you see it. I think there's like nothing that is necessarily inherently authentic. I think that there's some things that just kind of like take getting used to. The secret to appearing authentic might just come back to looking comfortable in your clothes. I mean, that's like the number one thing with everything we talk about, is just looking comfortable with what you're wearing.
But okay, that's a good point. But and I'm not trying to be like devil's advocate alt-right guy here. But I could see some people going, okay, well, how do you know what's comfortable? Yeah, like, what's authentically comfortable to you? And the idea that clothing, as being an authentic projection of your inner self, is pretty tough, especially with two things. When you're starting out, like if you're going from wearing like t-shirt pant like or style agnostic, like not even like there's no aesthetic there, it's just you're just a normal guy. It's kind of hard to find, okay, like, well, you want to get into clothing, but how do you know what's natural, how do you know what's authentic to you? That's a tough question. And then the other part of it is when you already have a style or you know what you want to do, and I don't know if a lot of people get stuck in the same style over. I mean, like, you and I have exponentially, branched off in tangents of our style. But how do we know if those new things are authentic? That's a tough question too, right? Like where, you like suits, right? And you want to be like, okay, well, let me go back. I think one big example is, people like wearing suits. You want to wear you want to be tailored, and then you want to be casual, or you want to find a way to make it fit your context, your environment, whatever. And so naturally you say, okay, well, I want to wear. An option is to wear a cotton suit, but at the back of your head, this hypothetical person, and I hate hypotheticals, but this guy could be like, oh, I want to be fancy, and a cotton suit or formal, and a cotton suit doesn't really get that to me. So how can I be casual while still being authentic to my true self? That's a common thing we get a lot, because, Spencer and I have gotten, quote, more casual over the years. Some people take, not issue, but some people wonder, like, oh, are you guys hopping on a trend, or like how authentic is it?
I mean, it is, if you are a suit guy, like, you can't, I mean, it's like really hard to get the proportions of a suit from any other garment.
Right.
So yeah, it's like, if it's in this hypothetical, that's like a really tough situation, because it's hard to say. It's like, oh, if you like suits, you can wear a short coat, which is kind of similar to a blazer, but obviously they do not fit the same. They do not just like, they do not like look the same on the body. And yeah, so like branching out to new styles, that's a tough one.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I mean, I think that the easy answer is the first point we have here, which menswear isn't authentic. And I know, like,
I mean, authenticity is like, it doesn't really exist.
Yeah, exactly.
I get, like, philosophically, like, it all exists, but it's like, all this stuff is made up. None of this stuff is tangible or exists in nature. It's just something that you kind of feel,
No, absolutely. It's just, it's really hard to kind of, at least for me, as someone who has grown up in this very social media, individualistic generation, right? It's hard for me to even think like, well, like, is this even an issue, right? Like, we don't live at the time where your clothing signaled where you are in society. That might be a little too old, but maybe like more of like your profession or your hardcore interest, because clothing now is an interest, like that's like, I remember maybe when I was a kid, right? Like if you liked wearing suits, I remember being told that, well, you got to be a lawyer, you got to be a businessman, because that's the only way you're going to be able to wear a suit and be, quote, like, normal, right? And, be out there. But nowadays, I mean, for better, for worse, lots of people wear suits. Realtors have kind of always worn suits, influencers wear suits, hip-hop artists wear suits. Everyone wears suits now. It's not tied to a, particular career, which is kind of a big
profession.
Deal. Yeah. And so, yeah, like a lot of clothing, like Spencer said, you just wear it because, you like it, it feels comfortable, you're just interested in it, and it's really tough when you try and find a way to, like, okay, what is that thing? Like, is it tied to a lifestyle? Is it a job? Is it tied to your interest outside of fashion? When you start going down that way, it's kind of tough. It's a bad rabbit hole.
Yeah, I think maybe we could start by like just saying, like, I think we probably both have examples of things that I know that I have examples of things that I've got that don't necessarily feel, quote unquote, authentic anymore. And while I still love a lot of them, I mean, that could be said about some of my, like, Ebbets Field hats. Like, one of them the first one I got a Brooklyn Eagles hat, which is like New York Yankees except serif. I got because it was like, okay, this is a basic baseball cap.
Right.
I ordered a couple more, I think through their like random mystery boxes where you pay like $50 and get like 3 hats or something. And the only one that I really still wear is my like CSUF hat, because it like feels weird to wear a baseball cap from a team that like I know nothing about.
Right.
And like people can think they are real teams and like, oh yeah, you like the Yankees, and I'm like, no. Like, I just, maybe it's like just that I don't want to have that discussion anymore, but stuff like that just doesn't. That's like an example of something that that no longer feels
right.
authentic.
I mean, I feel like you said, like when we talk about comfort, I mean, I don't think that you have to analyze it, and I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to this hypothetical straw man, because I do think that we do have a gut check where you know what's authentic. You can feel what feels right. You know. We talked about this in the old Ethan or the old Spencer episode, where, you know, I was torn between, you know, dressing in the way that people wore suits that was acceptable, you know, like the hashtag mensweary, influencer core, skinny suit thing that I like, that was still a suit. Like, I still want to wear a garment that has side tabs, that has cuffs, that lets you wear loafers and has lapels, but it was done in the way that I thought society expected of me, which was a slim fit, everything, right? And then I was torn between that and the whole vintage thing. And, you know, it's tough, right? It's like, okay, what feels authentic? And at the end of the day, I just was like, well, both of these things, you know, period accurate and super hashtag menswear, they both don't feel right to me. And I had to find out what that, like, what the common ground or the in the middle part that made me feel comfortable was, you know?
Yeah. I wonder, like, I don't know, I think we might get into like kind of like workwear and like military surplus stuff later, but it's kind of funny because it's like when I went from doing like period accurate like vintage looks, like 30s 40s vintage looks, to transitioning to something a little bit more contemporary, less period accurate, I tried to go with kind of like a very clean, like modern Ivy, like, you know, like armory kind of look for a little bit, and that didn't feel authentic.
What did you?
So I wonder
when was that? What did you wear for that?
I mean, this was like briefly, but it's like I was wearing like, you know, slim fit chinos and like denim jackets or whatever, and I was like, okay, I'm kind of, you know, I'm like incorporating vintage pieces, but in a modern way. But it like, yeah, it was one of those things where it didn't feel quite right, and like kind of coming back to like vintage proportions or like vintage clothing, kind of more like, you know, rugged stuff, that felt more right than like what I was doing before. So it's weird, like I wonder if I've, you know, like the whole like, oh, wearing like only like 60-year-old military surplus might seem kind of try hard, but to me that's like what feels right. It feels more right than just, I don't know, dressing more normal, I guess.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree, because the only thing that I felt was like really inauthentic was when we kind of got into milsurp and workwear, and I felt like I had to do it the way that you were doing. I mean, not like I, you know, not that I didn't like copy it exactly, but it's like, oh yeah, like the very, you know, like Newton Street vintage, you know, like Work and War, all these accounts that you know you kind of introduced to me, and I was like, okay, well that's cool. It's still like, you know, classic menswear, but it's vintage. It has vintage proportions. I got into it, but like it was the opposite issue where I felt like it was that I felt like I was a costume to me. Like it felt like I was still doing like it's. I'm very, I don't know. I don't want to say ironic. I never want to feel like I'm doing something like I'm defaulting. And even though this wasn't like, oh, you're defaulting to a polo shirt and slacks, it was like, oh yeah, I just look like another person from like Inspiration LA, you know. And it's like, you know, like it's just weird. And you know, at some point, I know some people, I started doing that mainly as a way to get away from my tailoring, because I know, like, I still hate it when people think I'm like a suit guy, and that sounds ridiculous because it's completely true, but I want people to get like, oh, I happen to be wearing suits, instead of like, oh, the suit guy, you know, if that makes sense. And wearing like the rugged Ivy,
I mean, it's like I don't think in general you don't want to be the blank guy. Yeah. And we probably still like fall into that. Like I feel like to a lot, you know, I'm like the milsurp guy, or, you know, vintage guy, or the suit guy to a lot of people. But you don't want to be that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And for a while I've always gotten that, especially, I've talked about dating on the stream and how, and we have an episode I think on like what girls are experienced like being into menswear, and like with the girls or whoever we're interested in, how they react to it. So that's kind of one reason why like figuring out what I wanted to look like was so important. And eventually I kind of was like, you know what, fuck it, I am the suit guy. I'm going to be wearing my soft shoulder sport coats. But I think now I can introduce a lot of casual ideas that feel a lot more authentic to me. Right, I think like my new my summer uniform. I don't think I think it might be posted now with the Future of Menswear article, but like I can wear like a knit tee with a sport coat and like those drawstring wide leg pants and like loafers, and that's completely casual, but it doesn't feel like I'm just wearing like I'm not wearing like that sloppy tie that still feels casual in my mind, but to outside people, it's decidedly more casual than what I typically wear. But in my point of view, it's not that I'm being casual. It's more like I'm just wearing different pieces that happen to be casual. It just, in a sense, it still feels true to me. I don't know how to like, make a formula out of that. There is no formula being authentic, obviously. But it's like, you're going to make mistakes, right? You're going to figure out what it is. I think one reason why people are so concerned with authenticity, and this could be for any kind of interest, is that clothing costs money. So everything that you do is like, well, is this going to be worth the investment? Or am I going to be like burning out, like, taking up like a bricked space in my closet for this thing that I wanted to try out, which is fair. And we've all kind of been there, and I think that's why people go, well, oh, I could never wear that.
And I mean, I think the other thing is like no one wants to look like they're trying really hard.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you're like branching out and trying something new that's different from what you normally wear, the first couple times you wear it, you might look like you're trying really hard.
Yeah.
Or you might just be like overly aware of it. Like I know that happened with me the first couple times I wore my Stetson outside of like menswear contexts. I was like, oh, I'm the guy in a cowboy hat. But like after a number of wears, it's just like a hat,
Right. Yeah.
So that's the other tough thing is like sometimes you might get something and your gut check is like, no, this isn't right. This isn't authentic. But it's like it just takes a little bit of time, like a little bit of like just getting over yourself.
Right.
To try to kind of figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, maybe one big part about authenticity is like how dedicated are you to the item and the vibe that you're going for, and that's a discussion you have to have like on your own, or hopefully with the community and friends that you have, like we talked about, like that's one reason why I think Spencer and I have gotten a lot better at dressing, is because we've had friends to bounce ideas off of and discuss with. Because it's unavoidable that you're going to be called a try-hard. I've said this before, where like when I first started MFA, people were very critical of what I was wearing. I mean, to their credit, it wasn't a good outfit. Like it wasn't that great. But you get a lot of these comments, right? So this brings me to what I remember now about not just me, but with Marco, a friend of ours, really one of the best dressed people I've ever met in my life. He's he's so good.
Yeah, really stylish guy.
And I was reading a comment, and I don't know if this was exactly like a trolling comment or well, clearly this guy was being a dick. But the guy was saying like, oh, hey, cool outfit, but I know you're young. Like, why do you fucking dress like this? Like, you're gonna regret it later in life. I don't know if you want to look like some coked out LA urbanite who is dressing in expensive clothes but lives in like a cheap ass place or whatever.
Yeah, it was kind of weird. It's like your clothes suggest a living situation much nicer than your background suggests, and it's like a photo of his very nice backyard. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about, bro?
Yeah, and I think it's like bad press or like bad reviews where like if 10 people like go to your restaurant, like 1 might say something good, but 5 might say something bad. Like people are more inclined to share bad or critique or just critical thoughts as opposed to something good. So, and when you dress up, people do say stuff. It's not like it's not going to happen. So you're going to get some critical people. And maybe that's why people are so concerned about authenticity. It's like one half of like, you know, um, wanting to not look like a tryhard, and the other half is like, well, you gotta, everything you do has to be justified. I also don't know if that's like a relatively new phenomenon where people have to like, you know, oh, you're gonna go someplace, you got to be dressed up for this, or you know, don't, you know, like don't get a gaming computer if you're not gonna like use it to the full potential. Like there's always this idea, and maybe that could be of any kind of interest where like you have to justify your choices, and clothing is probably the one that requires the most because, you know, a lot of people see it. You know, maybe if you're gaming, you only interact with gamers. You're not going to interact with like a regular guy with a computer. But when you're dressing up, you're going to, you know, like all just said, you're going to be in a lot of rooms that you don't have control over, which is a fair critique. But you know, it's really, I hate those people who do that, because it's like it's always projection. It's always like they have no idea who you are. And I think, you know, like we said, where it takes a gut check or it takes like a deep conversation with yourself and your friends, only you will know what the context is. You know, only you know, like you'll know exactly how authentic you're being, and even if it's totally fake, you don't gotta tell people. You know, like they're not gonna know.
Fake it till you make it, my man. That's how you got to do it.
Yeah, I mean, it just, you know, like I think for us especially, you know, where Spencer and I, or at least me, I'm very anti-influencer, and so it's really I do feel the need sometimes to kind of like not justify, but provide extra context, because, you know, if you're only taking fit pics, you know, and your goal is to kind of like, oh, be the online like influencer guy, if that's what you want, that's cool. But like, you know, if you know, I think Spencer and I have talked about this in private, but like, you know, the idea of sharing a fit pic is pretty narcissist, and it can be kind of weird and contrived when your entire feed is a fit pic. And there's nothing but the thing is, you have to remember, sometimes people join social media just to archive their fits. Like they're not joining social media to document their entire lives. We talk about that in the lifestyle of menswear enthusiasts.
Yeah, it's like I mean, at least in the last year, I haven't posted much on my social media outside of fit pics, but that's just because I haven't been doing much.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly. And, you know, you could, and, you know, some random dude could be like, oh yeah, Spencer's trying to be an influencer. And yeah, that's cool, whatever, you know, but Spencer knows what he's up to. That's not going to faze him. He also might not consider an influencer an insult like I do. But
I mean, I'm like, well, hey, well, tune into this stream that already happened by the time you're listening to it, but I'm sure we'll get into it a little bit more tonight. But yeah, we view I think we just think of social media differently.
Oh yeah,
but that's a different episode.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm a very open person, and so, you know, that's why what's it called, like these connotations that you have about whether or not you're being authentic or not is something that I definitely think about. And if we're going back to like what we like wear and how it becomes who we are, you know, I just like, you know, one of my biggest inspirations, and this is such a hashtag mentor response, but like, you know, like there's so many writers and artists who wear tailoring, and there's so many photos of them like smoking cigarettes and wearing OCBDs and like sloppy ties and slouchy sack jackets. And I'm pretty sure there are writers and people today who do that. Like I know that like Christopher Nolan, I think, is a director who still wears like suits on set. You know, he might not wear a tie, but he's kind of known for that. Or like Taika from Waititi, right? He not wear a suit, but he like dresses up in like a fit. He gets a fit off when he's like directing.
Paul Feig, right? He's the menswear director.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and you know, it's like their thing, and so you can definitely be a person who, you know, wears cool clothing. It doesn't have to be a suit, but it could, you know, you could be the director who wears milsurp. And I think that, you know, directors today, we're not talking, directors aren't like the focus of the episode, but like, you know, the look of a director in my head is always like the Steven Spielberg, like this, like the ball cap with like some kind of like cargo pants or whatever he's wearing, you know, like it's, and the thing, like, you know, like that's not really a uniform, but that's what people commonly think of. And so when you wear a suit, it's like, for a while it's kind of weird, but when you look at like, you know, the broad swath of creatives, it doesn't matter what you wear, and if you expand,
Yeah.
and those are directors, there's people making millions of dollars. If you think about, like, like, if you're in the office, you're an IT guy and you want to wear a milsurp, people, like, who the fuck cares? Like, it doesn't mean anything, right? Like the authenticity issue there is, if you're wearing what you want, is, and I think that we talked about this in the future of men's, where as dress codes go away, you're seeing a lot more variance and choice, yet you're also seeing a lot of cohesion at the exact same time, where everything looks like very streetwear meets 90s meets Seinfeld meets Milsurp meets whatever, Ivy. You can literally kind of wear whatever you like, and the only test for authenticity is if you like it or not. I think that people who say that, oh, your life is like this but you dress like this, it's a very old way of thinking. It's a very outdated and to me a very just it's uncreative, in a sense that, like, you're just kind of projecting, and I think this reminds me also of or most telling in the commentary we had for Dressing Up in a Dress Down World, where Bruce Boyer says, oh, I don't want to go to a fancy restaurant where a guy my age is wearing skinny jeans and like a graphic t-shirt, who's clearly trying to dress like his son. And again, no offense to the esteemed Bruce Boyer, but it's like, what if that's who he is, bro? Like,
It's just a guy that wears skinny jeans.
Yeah, and and also, like, skinny jeans aren't like that new. Like, if you think about, like, what if this guy was like in like the 60s and 70s wearing fucking women's jeans, right? And he's just older now. He could just be doing that.
And I mean, it's like, honestly, like, it obviously it's changing now, but for a while it was hard to get jeans that weren't slim, or at least slim fit. So hey, maybe he just bought his jeans.
Yeah, there's
recently.
There's an article that came out recently about how, and by recently it's gonna be like a month before this episode came out, because we're recording this in advance. But there's like a thing where, like, skinny jeans are never going to die away, because I think they did like a study and they interviewed like and this is like mainly for women's wear, but they talked to like a lot of brands, and they were like, they firmly believe skinny jeans are like the new normal jean now. Like there's something about it that's just going to stay forever. And like, and every collection is based on the skinny jean, where like they're going to have stuff like immediately like way wider than it, but they're never gonna like they're not gonna go like super.
They're never gonna fully get rid of the skinny jean. It's always gonna be available.
Exactly, and it's like Spencer said, sometimes people are just kind of like, they're kind of forced into whatever's at the mall, and I think, and the thing that's relatively new is that malls and well, just accessible fashion in general, for better for worse with fast fashion, is that these things are way more dialed into an aesthetic now than like ever before, where, and this should have been in the Future of Menswear episode that came out like a month ago, but
well, this is an amendment to
hey, we have to get the two out of 3 states ratification.
Yeah,
we got to get what's it called? We got to get James Spader's like lobbyist character in like Lincoln, where he's going around trying to sway the.
Oh, that's right.
Convince people to abolish slavery.
Someone's throwing beer in his face or whatever.
Yeah, one guy almost shoots him, and like he's like loading it with like the musket style. He's like,
man, that movie has such a good cast. God, I want to watch Lincoln again now.
Okay, like, honestly, I was listening to the score in the way over from my dentist's appointment, and I'm like, man, like, you can tell they really wanted to make this movie, and it's so good. Like, it's such a good
It's really
movie.
good. Lincoln is great. Yeah. Steven Spielberg knows how to make movies.
Yeah, Ready Player One.
Yeah, his best movie.
Yeah. But what was I saying? But yeah, so like, before, I could see like in the 90s where like you go to the mall, you wear like a fucking like just terrible fit. Like, I mean, that's just how it is, right? But then, and so I think guys who grew up in that thing wear, and I'm sure this is a big generational thing, and I'm sure we're going to argue with Henrik right after this. But there's that sense of like work you have to do to look good. That's a very old school, and it's a very early way of thinking, where like, just like with music, we talked about this in the Discord, right? Where like, nowadays these algorithms, these YouTube, playlists and Spotify,
it does the hard work of like finding new stuff for
Yeah.
you.
And you could argue about it, but there are people who can find great music today that didn't have to put on all that work. And it's, I don't want to, expand on like a leftist point of view here, but it's kind of like, if you expand on it in a very dumb way, you're like, it's when you give free education. It's like, well, I had to pay for mine. I had to like work 3 jobs, like, well, yeah, well, this is now so you don't have to do it. It's to me, it's like a very similar way of thinking where, why should we struggle to enjoy this good thing, like, and to enjoy art or to enjoy fashion, so like, like the idea that, oh, to dress like truly preppy, maybe earlier, by getting good, good, mid-rise jeans that fit right, and like a nice fitting button-down collar shirt. It might have been harder back in the day, but then now you can go to J. Crew, R.I.P. Well, they're not really R.I.P., but you could get
They're still
you can get like kitted out in a good outfit. Derek has talked about this, right? Where he's like, if these stores die, there's not going to be a place you can just walk into and be like fully, fully kitted out without having to think much about it. And so maybe these ideas about authenticity is, do you have to put in a bunch of work beforehand? Is that something that's a component?
I mean, I think once you authenticity theoretically should be pretty effortless, because it's like it's like, well, I guess not necessarily effortless because you have to like seek it out, but once you have it on, that's the end of it. If it's authentic, then it's authentic.
Yeah. No, yeah. It's like our slouchy argument with like Aldous, right? We're like, it's slouchy because I said it is, and yes, of course, there's still gonna be people out there who might think, that you're hopping on a trend. I mean, as much as we don't like to admit it, classic. Maybe we do actually, because we're cool indie guys in menswear.
Say it constantly.
But it's like menswear has trends. Classic menswear has trends. Like Gurkha closure and Gurkha pants are definitely a trend. Like now.
How many times do we have to tell you people that there's no such thing as timeless fashion?
Yeah, exactly. And that's also one obstacle to authenticity, when you're like, oh, well, what I wear has to be the same forever, or it can't be timeless. Like, no, like that's dumb. Like everyone introduces new things. Your taste in music, your taste in clothing doesn't really vary, and that's all like or doesn't stay static. That's also something we've talked about with Henrik before, right? Where he's like, well, he doesn't really listen to any new music anymore. He just, he kind of knows his taste. Which, I mean, again, could be generational.
I mean, I feel like that happens specifically with music to a lot of people. To like most people, I've read that once you reach a certain age, you kind of like stop seeking out new music. There are like studies on that specifically, that phenomenon specifically.
Right. Yeah. So, I wonder. I mean, maybe there hasn't been, or there is, but like I wonder if clothing is kind of the same way. I mean, again, clothing as an individual endeavor is relatively new. Of course, over time there's been a lot of people who have been known for their style in every decade, and these people, relatively speaking, are pretty cohesive in their thought process. Or at least, and by cohesive, I don't think it's not they're buying the same things, but there is a through line of like a commonality of how they approach clothing, like Ivy or workwear, or like, Ralph Lauren or something like that, where, yeah, it's like 70s early on, but like there's still the ideas like the strong shoulder pads, there's still those, the wide lapels that has still been around. And I would say that's authentic to I think that Ralph Lauren has been authentic his whole life, even if the small changes in silhouette, the less flared legs, have changed, and
so we keep I guess going back and forth on this, but yeah, how much is consistency important to authenticity?
I don't really know the answer to that, because I mean, dude, we're so young, right?
And why are we doing the podcast?
But I mean, like we don't have a lot of data to look back, right? We have, and this is something that I've gotten into with a lot of people. Whenever I share old pictures, they're like, "Oh, you're gonna cringe at yourself now," and I'm like, maybe, I don't know. But it's like, things always change. We always kind of knew that, and we haven't had like, we don't know what a career, like, working in a true office will do to our style, because even if we are authentic to ourselves, there's a lot of outside context, like, there's still a lot of, like we said, gut check. Like, yeah, I like wearing suits, but if someone says, "Hey, I'm having a beach party," I'm not gonna wear that suit. It's not like, and I don't think that, if I wear shorts and a t-shirt to that beach party, I don't think people are gonna be like, "Oh, Ethan's copping out. What a bitch. He's not being authentic." Like,
Yeah. Look at the suit guy wearing a t-shirt.
And I think, honestly, right? Maybe it's with authenticity, it's all about, it's like, this is called vibe, right? Like, it's authenticity is about a holistic vibe, as opposed to like a specific mode of dress. That and specific modes of dress are a very like early menswear journey way of thinking, right? Where it's like, you think that classic menswear is just tailoring, where today, and of course, feel free to fight us on this, we're probably wrong, but like, to me, if I think about Milsurp, I still think classic menswear because it's classic men's clothing. I think of Ivy, it's the same thing. Tailoring, same thing. It's all cohesive. So if I say I'm into classic menswear, they're still, to me, and presumably Spencer and the rest of the Patreon, the Discord and everything, it's a huge umbrella term that there is still so much to take from, so like, whenever, like, when someone goes like, "Oh, I don't know if a beret is authentic to me," I go, "Well, to me, it's a piece of classic menswear, and because it fits in perfectly because it's been around for a long time. There's precedent with it, and there's a lot of sources of inspiration that I can pull from that I like, and so, yeah, it might be different than than the hats I wore before, but to me it still feels authentic. And I feel like if you were to look at it like 10 years from now and you're doing a dissertation on the style of Ethan M. Wong, you could probably be like, "Oh, I could see it. I could see the context. I could see the through line." I'm and yeah. What do you think, Spencer? What do you think about that?
I think that you're correct in that it doesn't necessarily have to be, if you like suits, you have to wear suits all the time to be authentic. As I mentioned before, I am going to be getting a custom suit. I'm probably going to be ordering in the next couple of weeks whenever I get my tax return back. But yeah, it's, even though I haven't really worn suits as much recently, I feel like when I get it made, people will be able to look at it and say, "Okay, that makes sense." Someone who didn't know my style a couple of years ago when I was always wearing suits, they could look at that and say, "Yeah, that makes sense in Spencer's closet," because it's going to have enough casual, I guess, like, maybe, I'm trying to make it a little bit more quote unquote hard wearing for a suit.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think that if you can find those threads and through lines in your wardrobe, like that, then you're good.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that, again, takes time and maybe mistakes, like we said earlier. There is, maybe we don't want to say hard work, but there is still effort that goes into being authentic, because you still got to know what that is. And again, I know that not only are Spencer and I are younger compared to some other people, who have been wearing tailoring for a lot of their lives, or dressing up, but there is that idea, there's the fact that Spencer and I haven't really been working, and like working adults, for very long. Spencer is still in school. I'm about to, at the end of this year, I'll have worked at my new job, which is technically like my first like real job for like a year. And so we don't have to make these, we're fortunate not to make those decisions of like, well, what's appropriate for work, what's appropriate for being, or maybe being like a dad, or going, or whatever that is, like we're afforded this really like this leeway of like, it doesn't really matter what we wear because it doesn't matter what we're doing,
Yeah, so maybe it's like we're being assholes whenever we make fun of people for saying like, "Oh, I couldn't wear this in the office," because we don't know. Like 100% of the time when I'm getting dressed up, like, not 100%, most 99% of the time when I'm getting dressed up, there's like no dress code or anything that I really have to, like, I have to stick to. Yeah. I am entirely dressing in like the clothes that I want to wear that day.
Yeah, and this goes back to that, that idea about for a long time, like, careers, not just like offices, but any kind of career had they had not a dress code, but like this look to it, and it's really tough, and that's probably why a lot of people, like we said earlier, have a hard time kind of going in, like, how can I be into menswear if I'm a plumber or something like that, right? And that's it's very unfortunate. For a long time that was the case, but today we've met a lot of people. I mean, there's a vintage guy who was like a car mechanic, and he went in his free time, he would wear like Edwardian style suits and like a boater hat, and it's kind of cringy or whatever, but you gotta hand it to the guy to like still keep true to himself, and it's also really commendable to like have a distinction between work and who you want to be, to kind of delineate that. And for some other people, sometimes you get into a career where you get to wear the ideas of that career, right? Like some people do like wearing suits, but not the way Spencer and I do it, and that's fine. You can wear a very fine bespoke suit worsted with like a spread collar shirt and a very nice Macclesfield tie, handmade Drake's, whatever, and that's fine. And usually, those people tend to be like financial advisors, even though, they're the rich and we have to eat them. You are afforded that luxury of like, you kind of look and you look like the career you've chosen, it's just as valid as having a look that is totally unrelated to the career you've chosen. I mean, we have Urban Composition, big example, great guy, great personal style, who on paper has a very different look about what he's wearing at work and when he's at play. He wears, it's workwear, and then he's wearing like fucking bespoke tuxedos, shawl, double RL cardigans with like 18 East and drawstring pants, super great stuff. But then when you look closer at it, his workwear is kind of menswear. He wears like Taylor Stitch. He wears like hard wearing chinos. Yeah, I was gonna, and so
like all his workwear stuff are they're like cool Japanese brands or whatever. Like very, it's I think his stuff is great.
Yeah, and you look at it, and there's still, again, very loose definition of classic menswear, but like he's still wearing high-waisted chinos. He's still wearing, like these heritage brands, and it's still, when you're in the know, you can see the through line, like Spencer said, and it's cohesive, and so you don't really have to think, okay, is he being, which one's more authentic? Is it his workwear man or his menswear man? But at the end of the day, it's just he's being Peter. He's being Urban Composition, and those are, totally, it's all there. Who else? There's another person I could think of too. Like David Hockney, right? Like he's an artist and he wears like fucking sack suits, and he wears it with like fucking like torn up Converse and like bold pants, and like that's, what do you...
That's not really the best outfit to paint him. Like most people would just choose like a smock, a big shirt or something. Yeah, a smock.
And he fucking does that. Yeah.
And no one says like, look at this try hard. Maybe, I mean, that helps that he's David Hockney. So that's one thing that you could do is be David Hockney.
But honestly, like, I know that's a joke, but like sometimes you got to think of yourself in that way, right? Like I think when you start idealizing like these careers or these things that, this is what someone should be, or they can only do that because of their status. Like we talked about this in private, Spencer, but like, people have, I'm sure maybe you've gotten this too, where someone goes, I can't do that even if I want to because I'm not you. Like it's not even that, like it's not even like they have a job or whatever. They just say like, oh well, you're a menswear guy, or you're Ethan, you guys have a podcast, you guys get photographed all the time, you guys are famous. I laugh at that because who the hell are we anyway? But it's like you should have like,
don't people know that I've stolen everything? Like all my style I've stolen from other people.
Yeah, and
that's how it works.
And I mean, it's hard to do this, but like it's a healthy dose of narcissism where you have to realize like your choice in clothing is important. What's authentic, and authentic, like that's basing authenticity on yourself. That's what it should start with, and then you make edits on the context, right? But if you start from a very like, what will other people think of me, it's really tough. And again, we're probably being assholes, we don't know your context here, but it does help to take your own preferences into consideration, because otherwise you're never going to be truly authentic, if you want to continue that line of thought. I always try and encourage people like, I'm not Ethan, I'm Wong. And like, you're so-and-so and you can wear that. Like you can make it your thing, and
Exactly. Like, you're not going to wear it exactly the same as me, but it's like you will, like, going back to the example of a beret, which a lot of people have been jumping on recently because HW Dog and
Came
Co.
back, baby.
recently restocked.
Yeah.
So yeah. So if you need a beret, check them out. But yeah, like, people aren't going to be necessarily wearing the beret the same way that you do, or that Kenji does, or whatever. But they're gonna find the way to wear the beret that works for
Right.
them.
No, exactly. And, and to go, this is a little side point that we'll probably talk to in a couple of other menswear streams. But like, that's why I don't want to be an influencer or be considered an influencer. It's because I don't want that title, because I want people to think that they can absolutely wear whatever I'm wearing. There is not none of this like, oh, you're a fancy guy, you're a suit guy, whatever. Like, I'm normal. I do take fit pics. I'm a photographer. I like very specialized clothing or very niche clothing, but at the end of the day, like, I think anyone can do this. And it's cool to see the Patreon kind of and the Discord, really being, and not even that, the fucking Sad Head Saturday is a good example of that. All these guys, different backgrounds. I know I'm friends with a couple of them. They all have very, on a very wide range of styles. I don't know what they are. I'm not going to assume that, oh, they're, people are going to think that they're lying or whatever, because who am I to know that? They know who they are, and if they look good, they look comfortable, that's what fucking matters,
That's what matters.
It's hard to tell from a fit pic, and that's, again, the issue with menswear and the issue with social media in general. People are only allowed to see a very small snippet of what you're wearing, and of your life, because it's like, some guy goes like, oh, don't people stare at you when you go out there? And I'm like, well, if I'm wearing the sport coat to hang out with Spencer, and Jay and these guys who we hang out with, and we're getting boba, feels pretty natural to me, man. Like, I feel like it's just not, it's whatever. And
we keep saying, like, I mean, maybe the secret, because we've been like hitting on this every episode, is just kind of have like friends that also dress cool, and depending on where you are, that might be kind of hard to find. But yeah, just like really being with one or two other well-dressed people just gives you context, like, by itself,
yeah, exactly. And that also kind of makes it authentic, because I think, again, something that we kind of touched on in throughout this entire episode is that people base authenticity on the context around you and, like, the environment. So if you can change your environment to fit that, then you're kind of, you're working at both ends, right? Like, you're changing the context, and you've got a cool fit on, and you're making it work. It's a push and pull, egg and chicken kind of thing. It's just a paradox. It's just authentic. It's just what it is. And before we wrap up, I think the only issue with authenticity, I think, maybe can come from things that point to a very specific aesthetic, like, and you touched on very early on, but the merch idea, I know we're gonna have a whole episode on merch, but yeah, that when you wear this cap that has a thing, or wear a shirt that has a band that maybe you haven't heard of, maybe don't do those things, but I mean, from a regular menswear standpoint, right, like, don't feel obligated, to wear certain menswear items that you feel like you have to, if it doesn't make sense, right? Like, if you're a suit guy, it doesn't have to be worsted suits. You can wear cotton suits and get the same effect, especially, as we said in, like, other episodes, where, like, no one's going to say, what? That's navy cotton, not navy wool. That's you're fucking crazy.
You're insane.
Yeah.
I'm calling the cops.
And it's like, and I'm sure a lot of other guys kind of got that way too, where they feel like they couldn't do something like, oh, I can only wear suits with, like, elegant loafers or whatever. But as we've seen, people wear, like, like Drake's, or even like Philip in our Patreon has worn, like, like pair of boots with, like, chunky soles, and they look just fine, and yeah, it might go against the rules of classical menswear or whatever, but it's still, on a very broad term, classic menswear. It's a French, like, it's a Tyrolean style shoe, or it's got its roots in that kind of thing. People wore those in the 40s with trousers and everything. There is precedent, and it's authentic, and you can just say, I like that thing,
It's like, it's like every episode, it's going back to the POV thing, where you gotta figure out what your style is, develop it, because that's how you achieve it. Because otherwise, you're gonna be like one of the guys on Instagram, like always like doing the next trend, taking chest shots or whatever. And that's not, I don't know, that's not what I want to be. I want to like have only good clothes.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
that work for me.
The funny thing, though, on that note is this might open up another can of worms because I know we're hitting the hour, but hey, we had a whole 10 minutes of hilarity at the beginning.
Yeah.
But I remember when there's two examples here. When they had Kevin Wang, who used to be in Herman back in the day. I don't know if you remember that. Like it's like this. It's a picture of these two Asian guys at the Jazz Age lawn party wearing like these double-breasted suits.
Mm-hmm.
Really cool stuff. Kevin Wang was one of the guys who worked on the brand with Min He, who was the founder of it, and he became like editor-in-chief of Taiwan GQ. And his style, like there's an Instagram album, and he wore everything. He wore like, I think he wore like Liverano, but then he wore like super streetwear stuff, super modern, and just a very wide swath of stuff. And one of the comments was like, well, he just looks good in everything, and nothing feels authentic. He's just wearing cool clothes. And that's something I've always thought of too. And I don't know if that's a valid critique, because at a certain point, like, yeah, you can tell someone is like a trend whore, especially in like early hashtag menswear with like lapel pin and everything. But once the execution becomes really good, it's really tough to tell what, you know.
They could be someone who just does like a wide variety of styles and enjoys having a huge wardrobe
and does it really well,
where they can change it up.
And, but honestly, like I think I briefly mentioned in the Discord, and I was hit with pretty hard criticism because at the end of the day, I think maybe that's authentic. Like Kiyoshi talks about, like being an enthusiast of clothing. I don't think he says that he subscribes to any specific thing like that you and I do. And that's something I've had to kind of think about, especially as MJ has said this kind of same thing and Matt has said this kind of same stuff. And again, if these names are foreign to you, you got to come to the streams. You got to be a part of the Patreon. But sometimes like just enjoying something can be authentic, like you think about like food or like music where no one's gonna be like, oh, you like country and rock and roll, which one's the real one, you fraud? But like you can just like music, you can like both, just because you really like American food doesn't mean you can't be like, whoa, this Mexican restaurant is so good. Like it can be all a part. You can be in pursuit of the art as a whole, and maybe this whole idea, again, we're coming up with a lot of these, we're fighting back against this invisible strawman authentic guy here, but it's like when you try and put authenticity into like pigeonholes and everything, you're going to set yourself up for failure, or you're going to come up with this big identity crisis, because as I wrote this down, where it's not just about not taking menswear or clothing too seriously, but being authentic as we move on in this world. Authenticity is kind of ridiculous, or the notions of it are just outdated, where to this new generation, to Spencer and I, being authentic is just, who you like, what you like. And
I mean, it's like I want to dress like when I think of myself and like in my head, this is like I just want to dress like that, like there's not even dress like that. It's just like there's a vibe that I like to think that I have and I'd like to project, and that's how I'd want to dress to show that off.
You've hit it on the head, Spencer. I think that's something I've always said too, where like I want to look like the person in my head at all times. And the thing is, right, like we talked about this in the practicality episode that came out 2 weeks ago, or that we recorded last week because we're crazy guys who like to bank things.
Call us bankers.
Yeah, the deal or no deal. we're that little shadow with the little headset. But it's, you can sometimes pick things based on what that person is and those hobbies.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I want to be a slouchy dude who wears suits. Well, I can't really accomplish that with a very fitted silhouette. What I can do is, do soft shoulders, extended, draped chest, wide legs. That's how that works. And that's how it becomes, natural. And like Spencer says, you got to dress like whatever guy. And the thing is also, like, you talk about authenticity, dude, like people change also. You get older, again, the context change. I remember when Jeremy Kirkland, the host of Blammo, again, great episode, and great dude all around. Someone posted an inspo album of him on MFA, and it was, and Jeremy's been into fashion for a long time. Like, he was there for hashtag menswear. He was in Rick. He was in a bunch of different stuff. That's why he's probably one of the most knowledgeable guys around, who's like kind of been around for the zeitgeist and documented stuff. I mean, you could say the same thing for like Throwing Fits too. But people were like, oh, look, he just goes from like, he's like trend hopping and he's wearing Rick to this. But like, sometimes you get older. Sometimes when you're younger, you can wear Rick because you're in college or you're working at a tech startup. It doesn't matter what you're wearing. And then when you get older, maybe, you get a different job. You work at the armory and you're like, well, I can't really wear Rick to this, but I can wear, fucking Taylor Cade and some cool jeans from fucking 316. And it's still cool. It's still kind of punk, compared to like what everyone else is wearing. It's still very contrarian, but it takes on a new meaning. And that's something to be applauded. That's something that's a very big part of authenticity. Saying one thing should stay forever is not authentic, because humans don't do that. Like, directors change.
Yeah, we change.
Martin Scorsese has changed. John Williams has changed. All these people, everyone that we look up to, whether any kind of artistic endeavor changes. And at the end of the day, if you're not thinking about this as art, then I can't help you, man. I can't, like, it's just not gonna work out.
Yeah.
It's yeah.
Yeah, but once again, it all comes down to just figuring out like who you want to be.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the exact opposite of authenticity.
well, I get, like I said, it's like chicken and egg, right? Like, which one informs the other, right? Like, who do you want to be and who you are kind of become the same thing. And again, we have forced versatility, right? Where you sometimes you just make it happen. You just like berets.
I mean, yeah, that's one thing I wanted to say is like, like some workwear looks I feel like can look kind of try hard. So I make an effort to like not be afraid to actually like do stuff in my clothes. Even if they are like, I mean, obviously if they're super old and super delicate, I'll be careful with it. But a lot of my workwear, I'm like, this could, I could still like wear this to do like lifting, not, workout lifting, but like moving stuff or whatever, and it'll be fine. And I mean, we talked about this in the practicality episode, but yeah, just living in things and not being afraid to wear your clothes gives you a sense of authenticity.
Yeah, and then when you're at the stage of like commissioning, like we talked about in the custom tailoring episode, you can sometimes create the things that are the perfect thing for you, right? Like not just suits, but like for me, I like work shirts a lot. I know Spencer and I both like those things. We referenced it in the practicality episode, and to me, even though they're casual, I can still wear them with tailoring, especially if they have a spear point collar. And then it's still that's a big thing that's me, and you still have the pockets, put the film in there, put like the notepad in there, it just kind of, it kind of makes sense. And the cool thing about this kind of more the niche of menswear that we're a part of is that we've met so many guys who eventually like they have so many different contexts. They have force versatility upon it. They make it happen. Just like David Hockney, I could think of like Ryan, where you talk about how he puts like those markers in his pockets and everything. He's an artist. I'm sure when he's out hanging out illustrating in like a fucking his book or whatever, he could be wearing something else, but no, he decided to wear tailoring, and it's authentic to him. He does it the way he wants to, and it just fucking works, and you can't give him flack for it. Only someone who only some weird hardliner who has one specific slice of his life on media, on social media, or maybe they saw him at like a coffee shop or whatever, maybe that person might have a negative opinion or might wonder, oh, this guy's a tryhard, but they'll never interact with each other. They'll move on. There's the fishmonger thing, right? The rooms. It's just you move on, and it's certainly, like we said, a privilege for us to say that. And I'm very curious if in the future when we have to what do you call it? Revisit this with new context, with our jobs, with families, with where we're living. It'll be interesting. But at least for now, we ask you guys, just try and see what you like, or try it out. Wear it by yourself for a little bit. Wear it around the house. Try these new things, because at the end of the day, you'll know what's authentic, and you'll be able to make it work for you.
I mean, yeah, this whole podcast the last couple months has just turned into like you just figuring out what you are comfortable wearing. It's kind it sometimes can be like a difficult discussion to have because as we keep saying, it's like all this stuff is just it's like just a feeling that you have or it when you see it. But like we've gone through this. Hopefully, us rambling for hour and 10 minutes or whatever. Kind of helped you, figure out some stuff. Yeah. Maybe gave you a sense of how we got there.
Yeah, exactly. And hey, I know, yeah, we'll eventually talk about that merch issue because that's kind of a big thing in menswear that's coming up. And the big issue with merch is like we said, when we saw like those influencer girls wearing Thrasher t-shirts, it's like, is it authentic? Why are you wearing that if you're not connected to it? And that'll be another fun discussion that'll tie into it. Because we're seeing not only merch and collaborations, but like fake merch now, right? Like that's like a big, the whole
like things pretending to be merch that aren't merch for anything.
Yeah, exactly. That's a big thing, and you'll hear it in 2 weeks. But again, like I mentioned, hopefully this episode has given you a little bit of a broader context, at least in terms of like getting into tailoring or trying Milsip or trying Ivy. Yeah, listen to some other episodes. You can hear this.
Yeah, it doesn't even have to be classic menswear. Like if you decide that going full Rick is authentic, then more power to you.
And it's still cool.
Just got to kind of figure it out. Yeah.
Well, guys, thank you for listening to the episode. I really enjoyed this one. Again, thank you to everyone in the Patreon Discord who really just kind of formulates our discussion topics on this. We really don't think of this stuff until we get into not arguments, but like debates about certain topics.
Yeah.
But yeah, so if you want to be a part of that discussion, not just talking to the Aether here, you can join us in a Discord and get a bonus episode while you're at it. We get one of those every month with producer MJ and civilian Matt, who big ups to Matt, who has been a producer. I know we talked, we had the guys say something on the stream, but we want to thank him for his work over on the podcast for a couple of months. So he's had to take a step back now.
Absolutely.
But he'll still be here. He's still around. Don't worry about it. But yeah, you get a bonus episode with him if you join the Patreon at patreon.com/Style and Direction, all spelled out. $5 a month gets you access to that Discord and the bonus episode. But 10, do you want to say it or do you want me to say it? I can say it.
If you have it pulled up already, say it, but...
Okay, I got it. Don't worry about it. Don't worry, baby.
Okay. I could...
It's okay. I got it. Thank you to Austin Malott, Shane Curry, Philip Gagard, Andre Jessica, Jeremy Ostreicher, and Guy Zhang. We will appreciate you. That's their $10 tier for the podcast.
So much money.
Right. But Spencer, and I know what you can tell me. What if Patreon's not for you?
Yeah, if Patreon's not for you, if $10 is, as I just said, so much money, and so is $5, I guess, then you can support us for free by leaving us a 5-star review on iTunes. Writing a review also helps if you have the time or the inclination. We would really appreciate that. It helps get the podcast out to other people because we don't really do any advertising. We don't pay for any advertising. So that's one of the only ways that we can get a new audience.
Absolutely. It's we want people to kind of, we're not really motivated by money as much. Well, I mean, not all the time, but
it would be nice, but that's not like why we
we really love topics like this because and talk about authenticity. We genuinely want more people to approach clothing like this because, it's not that the comments we get are bad, but it's like, I do feel kind of sad that some people aren't able to kind of approach it in this way, and it's really freeing, I think, when you get like this. And I also I will say, getting into menswear like this has really opened me up to other art forms. Like I don't think I would have started painting if I got into this, like painting. I'm a nerd. I'm a Star Wars guy. I don't paint, but hey, it works out.
Yeah.
Or,
I mean, I don't know what came first because I've just been realizing that it's not really just clothing that I have my opinions are strongest about clothing, but in general I think I just really care about the aesthetics of things. I just care about design and how things look in general. Right. And I'm not sure if that came from being deep into clothes for so long or if that was always an innate thing.
I
just choose to express it through
same
clothes.
way. I mean, it's just kind of, you know, it's kind of funny where the podcast and I guess the blog has a very like mid-century kind of feel to it, or like a neo mid-century thing, and then, you know, we dress
a mid-century podcast. Yeah.
and it's like, well, I mean, like, yeah, we kind of dress like it's, well, I mean, there are days when it's like 1961 kind of a thing, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely agree, man. Like, it's when you're able to look at aesthetics but with an expanded view and a very creative open mind, it lets you try a bunch of new things that you never really thought that you could do before, you know. Hobbies, friends, experiences, food, art, movies, everything I think came from being into menswear. I mean, also it's weird that we're having this point at the end of this after we've done the boilerplate stuff. But
yeah, who cares? That's why you gotta listen to
I hope.
Unfortunately, I bet most of our listeners drop out right when we start doing the boilerplate.
Yeah.
But if you did stick around, congrats! You get an extra bonus piece of wisdom.
Yeah, I mean, again, honestly, like I don't want to talk too much about this, but like, you know, getting into it this way, like I remember before being very stubborn about a lot of things. Like, I remember I used to eat like plain burgers, right? And I still kind of do, but like now I can go to a place and like try their burger. You know what I mean? Like it's very similar to like that custom bespoke thing where we talked about how, oh, I only want to get a period reproduction suit, but now it's like, oh, you know, I actually like how that tailor does it. I would just go to them and get it done. You know, so it's crazy. You know, yeah, menswear is great, and I'm glad that we're being, you know, we're learning, we're maybe not changing authenticity, but we're expanding what it means to be authentic to ourselves. Maybe that's the biggest part of wisdom about this whole thing, you know, expand, you know, just being open-minded. That's also kind of a big point of the podcast.
Yeah.
We'll catch you.
You gotta have an open
That's
mind.
right. We'll catch you on Saturdays for a discussion probably on the same topic. We do that every Saturday. Not just if there's a podcast episode, but we like streaming on Saturday nights, 8 o'clock Pacific Standard Time till about 10. Submit your outfits so we can, you know, share them and talk about them. We're also on Wednesdays for the podcast, which is just for gaming and very casual. We do poker. We watch MJ play Spider-Man or whatever he's playing. There's a lot of that. And yeah, you can follow the podcast at Style and Direction. You can follow me at Ethan M. Wong.
I'm at Spencer DSO.
And thank you to producer MJ for, as you guessed it, producing this episode and the streams and everything. Don't get on mic. We'll catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.